The Green River Killer, a name that sends chills down the spine. Gary Leon Ridgway, one of America's most prolific serial killers. His reign of terror gripped the Pacific Northwest, leaving a trail of death and despair. Ridgway preyed on vulnerable women, often prostitutes and runaways. His killing spree began in the early 1980s. The Green River, a serene waterway in Washington state, became his dumping ground. The river, once a symbol of life, became synonymous with death. Ridgway's victims were daughters, sisters, and mothers. Their lives were cut tragically short. This essay will explore the life and crimes of Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. We will examine the investigation, his capture, and the subsequent trial. Finally, we will remember the victims and the impact of his crimes on their families and the community. Gary Leon Ridgway was born on February 18, 1949, in Salt Lake City, Utah. His childhood was far from idyllic. It was marked by a dysfunctional family life. His parents' relationship was tumultuous, plagued by constant arguments and domestic violence. Ridgway's mother, Mary Rita Steinman, was a dominant figure in his life. She constantly belittled his father and often directed her anger towards young Gary. Witnesses recall her humiliating him, even in public. These experiences left him feeling inadequate and insecure. School offered little respite for Ridgway. He struggled academically and was a target for bullies. His classmates found him strange and avoided him. This isolation further fueled his feelings of inadequacy and resentment. Ridgway's troubled childhood cast a long shadow over his adult life. He struggled to form meaningful relationships and battled inner demons. He married 3 times, each marriage ending in failure. His wives described him as controlling, possessive, and prone to fits of rage. In the early 1980s, Ridgway's dark fantasies began to manifest in terrifying ways. He started picking up women in the Seattle-Tacoma area, often prostitutes or runaways. He would gain their trust, offering them rides or money, then drive them to secluded areas. It was there in the solitude of the Pacific Northwest wilderness that his murderous rampage began. Ridgway's preferred method of killing was strangulation. He often returned to the crime scenes, revisiting the bodies of his victims. As the body count rose, so did the pressure on law enforcement. A task force was formed to catch the Green River Killer. Section 4: Hunting Grounds. The Green River Killer's modus operandi. Ridgway's crimes followed a chilling pattern. He primarily targeted young women on the fringes of society, often prostitutes or runaways. He saw them as easy prey, their disappearances less likely to be noticed or investigated. His method was calculated and cold-blooded. He would often engage his victims in conversation, learning about their lives and vulnerabilities. He would then lure them to secluded areas, often wooded areas or abandoned buildings. Once alone, Ridgway would overpower his victims, strangling them with his bare hands or ligatures. He often posed the bodies, sometimes returning to the crime scenes to relive the murders. The Green River, its banks shrouded in secrecy, became his dumping ground. This knowledge of the terrain gave him a chilling advantage, allowing him to dispose of the bodies quickly and evade capture. Section 5: The Investigation, a Race Against Time. The Green River Killer case became one of the largest and most complex serial killer investigations in U.S. history. The body count continued to rise, each victim a grim reminder of the killer's depravity. The pressure mounted with each passing day. A dedicated task force led by Detective Robert Keppel worked tirelessly to crack the case. They interviewed hundreds of potential witnesses, chased down countless leads, and meticulously combed through evidence. Frustration grew as the killer remained elusive. The investigation received a major breakthrough in the late 1980s with the emergence of DNA technology. Investigators carefully collected and preserved DNA evidence from the crime scenes. Years turned into decades and the case went cold. However, the Green River Task Force never gave up hope. Their dedication would eventually pay off. Section 6: Justice and Legacy, Trial, Imprisonment, and the Victims' Memories. In 2001, nearly 2 decades after the first bodies were discovered, the Green River Killer case took a dramatic turn. DNA evidence, meticulously preserved from the crime scenes, was re-examined using new techniques. The results pointed to one man, Gary Leon Ridgway. Ridgway, who had been a suspect in the early days of the investigation but was never charged, was working as a truck painter at the time of his arrest. He was a seemingly ordinary man, leading an ordinary life, but beneath the surface lurked a monster. Faced with overwhelming DNA evidence, Ridgway struck a deal with prosecutors. He confessed to killing 48 women, making him one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. Ridgway was sentenced to 48 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole.